What just happened?
So about a year ago is when our YouTube channel really started taking off, because we started doing content revolving around The Chosen and talking about what's happening in these episodes and breaking down different pieces of it. We really found a lot of success in that on YouTube. But one of the most insane moments from last year is the first time that we met Dallas Jenkins. He is such a nice guy, and he offered to come on one of our live streams right after we were done breaking down episode 5 of The Chosen, right after it had premiered. So we gave kind of our first thoughts on what this episode was about and how we liked it. But then Dallas came on the live stream and just changed everything. And it was an amazing, amazing night. And so many things have changed since then. I mean, just look at how our videos look now, or even our amazing studio that we've gotten to set up over the last year. It's been a privilege. And so here's a little piece of us meeting Dallas for the first time.
Dallas.
Here he is. You guys ready? Here we go. We present to you the Dallas Jenkins.
Hey.
We're going to have to squish in here a little bit. Actually, I can make us widescreen.
Can you hear me?
Well,
okay?
hello. Nice to meet you.
Making sure.
Yep, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, believe it or not, I'm actually in the office where I did the live stream, but this is much worse lighting, and I've got my blue light glasses on. So,
No worries.
very fun.
For sure.
This is unvarnished.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. So to give some background on who we are, I'm a worship pastor, and we've been in ministry for almost 10 years now. We just decided last year during the pandemic and everything that we would start YouTube, and we didn't know like where God wanted to bring us. And so, we knew that we wanted to talk about creativity. We knew that we wanted to talk about business. We knew that we wanted to talk about cinematography. And it's just so crazy how God kind of brings everything together. Yeah. And we didn't realize until, this last month that The Chosen is the perfect vehicle for us to talk about those things, but also, talk about something that we just love talking about in general.
Jesus.
Yeah. and so it's just been a perfect melding of God bringing the perfect thing at the perfect time, and I don't know, us being in the right place, I guess. So thank you so much for all that you've done and all that you continue to do. It's really, really, really amazing, and I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot of the lives around me.
I really appreciate it, because I feel like this really is a partnership. I mean, I think one of the things that makes the show what it is, and the fact that it's become this kind of movement, is because I really love the church. I really love, I believe that everyone has their calling and their role in the church. And I have a specific role. I believe God's given me specific gifts. And I believe that we need desperately for the show to work, and for the show to actually have legs, and for it to actually have roots into people's lives. The show can't be the end game. There isn't enough. There are people who during every episode are saying, well, what did they mean by that? Or what verse is this from? Mm-hmm. And they need so many people, including people who've been believers their whole lives, including myself, need to continually be learning more and seeking more. And your channel is the kind of place that people can go to and get the kind of analysis that they're not going to get in a show. Because if I start trying to put that in the show, it's going to get really boring and weird. And the show has its own purpose, but you guys have your purpose. And so I just found myself blessed by a lot of your videos. And there were a couple times I'd watch one of your videos and go, "Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that."
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
And so it's I just really loved it, and I think that it's really necessary for particularly, I mean, all artists need this, but particularly Christian artists who, throughout most of my life, weren't always encouraged to do great art.
Yeah.
And you're here. I believe your show is here to go, you should be doing great art. And here's an example of art that we really love. And here's some examples we can pull from it that can be instructive. And it's just really meaningful. So I just really appreciate it. I was, our stream started buffering at the end of it. After the stream was already over, it just stayed up too long. So I was talking to our guys to take it off. And then I saw yours kind of popped up on the feed. And I'm like, oh, they're still live. Let me go check it out. And I thought, hey, maybe I'll come on. So anyway, we're mutual fangirling here. I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. The one thing that somebody asked that I was really, really interested in while I have you is the scene where they're talking to Shmuel and the other guy's name is slipping my mind.
Yanni.
The other Pharisee. Okay. When they're talking to the man in that room, like the lawmaker, the what is that scene? If you could explain that a little bit more.
Okay. So he's just a clerk, basically. His job
Yeah.
is to, he handles all the paperwork, he's just basically the bookkeeper. You could have considered him a scribe, perhaps, but he's just the typical, he's the typical guy behind the desk that when when you go to the DMV and you need help, you're typically going to be kind of annoyed. And so Shmuel and Yanni's the name of the other Pharisee, are saying, we've already put in a petition about some of the things we were seeing. Well, now we think we have a name to apply to it, Jesus. So we need you to update that report. And he's like, okay, I know what you're talking about. Let me pull it out. He pulls the report out and he goes, oh, this has already been like this was going up the chain and it got stopped and now it's closed.
Yeah.
And they find out, I assume you figured this part out just because he says it's a high-ranking member of the Sanhedrin put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And then when they're walking out later, they're like, Nicodemus, doggone it, he's stopping things. Yeah. So what did you find? What was unclear about the scene when you watched it the first time?
Just who it was.
Yeah, really? Just what that position was. Yeah. I think the scene that I'm gonna have to do more digging on is when Yanni and Shmuel are talking by themselves. I think there's a lot of things that I don't really know there, so I'm gonna have to do some deep dive for sure before we talk about that on our channel. But
like the sex within the Pharisee.
Okay, yeah. So that's really interesting, and that was a really hard scene, because I really believe strongly that this show needs to have the political side of things, the socio-political side of things, the kind of behind the curtain of the religious, like the back rooms, basically. Because just like you're seeing the disciples and Jesus and the people being healed and all the fun stuff, they deserve their own backstories. We really believe that the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees and that whole world needs its own backstories too, so that when the two worlds collide, it actually makes a lot of sense. And you also get to see the motivations, because I firmly believe that Shmuel is sincere and acts a lot like some of the people in the chats during The Chosen. Who is like, I mean, that was one of my favorite scenes in all of season 1 was episode 6, when Nicodemus and Shmuel are debating, and Shmuel is making some really good points. He's like, the Bible says this, and they just didn't have the New Testament yet. And he was a really strong Bible believer. So my point in saying all that is that we want to show you all this backstory, because I think it helps humanize these people. So that's a long way around what I'm about to say, which is that in that scene, we had to start giving you some of this backstory, which is that there were two schools of thought in the Sanhedrin, and they debated all the time. And one was Hillel, and Gamaliel was part of this. In fact, the New Testament mentions Gamaliel, and a lot of scholars believe that Jesus would have either been a student of Gamaliel or would have studied him, because Gamaliel was very much of the laws have gotten too strict and not all biblical. And so anyway, Hillel was the leader of that school, and Shammai was the leader of the strict school. And so then Yanni is saying the court has these two distinct sides, and he says the court splits when there's a debate. And as we're writing the scene, we're like, all right, so how do we educate people on some of this without it being so much that you can't even comprehend it? And then double down on the fact that, as it turns out, Shammai was the real life name of this person. Shimon was his philosophical rival, and because Shimon was the son of Hillel. And then we've got this character Shmuel, and I'm literally like, oh my gosh, people are going to get confused with all these Jewish names. So that's why I added that joke at the end of the scene when I'm like, he needs to say what the audience is saying. So anyway, those are really hard scenes to write, but they're super important, because I do believe that it's going to be really cool as the seasons go on if we see all the backroom dealings, and
Yeah.
that we see more of that in the rest of the season. And I know it's not the most exciting scenes, but the actors are great, and I think it. I wouldn't recommend this show to everybody because I know it's not necessarily appropriate. But The Wire was a show that I was watching and binging when I came up with the idea for The Chosen. And The Wire was an HBO show that was all about detectives and gangs and city hall all trying. It showed all of the different aspects of the city as there were drug wars and all this stuff. And there was just a lot of that I thought, oh gosh, this would really be interesting in a Jesus show to see the backroom dealings and to see the struggles between the common people, which in the Wire would have been the drug dealers on the streets, and the cops, which would have been the Pharisees, and City Hall, which would have been the Sanhedrin. And so anyway, I don't want to bore you with all that stuff, but
No, you're great.
Anyway, that's what that scene was.
Yeah, it's definitely super cool, and I'm interested. The show in general has gotten us to think differently about the Bible for sure, and think differently about the understanding of each character, and my bet would be that 80 to 90% of all Christians could not mention all 12 disciples before, but after this show, they will be able to. I think that in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. That I think the show will go far beyond that, but that in and of itself, I think, is so great that people will have faces to put to names and be able to walk in a way that is changed. I liken it to we have a video about going to Israel, and going to Israel was one of the things that changed the way that I read the Bible. I mean, because when you're reading the Bible, you have these kind of fake pictures of what things look like. But when you go to Israel, you're remembering what these things look like. And so it totally changes your perspective when you're reading the Bible. And I think that this show, in a different way, but similarly, will do the same. When people think about Matthew, just like you were saying in one of the behind the scenes things, God gave you this vision of this is what people will think of whenever they think of those disciples, right? I think that's huge.
I was just about to share that story. Actually, I didn't know that you knew that, but yeah, it was in Israel when I was in Magdala at a synagogue that Jesus would have been in, that where my Israel trip really hit me. Because the first 2 days I was kind of expecting what everyone talks about. Like when you get there, it feels like you're Jesus's, like you walked where Jesus walked. And it was cool, but I wasn't having this really profound personal experience until I was in Magdala. And I believe God really did lay explicitly on my heart that in several years, this show will be what people think of when they're picturing my followers, and I'm not going to let you screw it up. And I've seen that over and over again, and like you said, I see it in the chats. Even people who've been believers a lot of their lives have been saying things like, "Who's this guy again?" And what? Oh, I didn't know that he was his brother. Oh, I didn't. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And that's what's happening with me. I feel like I'm learning new things every day as well. And the show has been quite a cool opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was recently reading Mark, I think, and I literally pictured Simon like Peter. Yeah. It, but you're Peter, it was interesting. I was like, that's a first.
So when you guys do your videos, are you, because a lot of them are very educational, how much of that is stuff you already knew beforehand, or is it stuff that you went and studied because of the episode so that you could then come back and share it with everybody?
I'd say it's definitely different for every episode. I went to Southeastern University, and so I have
in Florida.
Yep. So that's where we are. We're in Florida, Central Florida, and I went to Southeastern, and so I have a biblical degree, like a pastoral degree. And so I know some of that from that and just reading the Bible my whole life. But a lot of it is me sitting down and us sitting down and trying to write out and figure out how to research these things and how can we give the most value to people that are trying to watch. So,
and for me, I'm just really into apologetics. That's how I became a Christian, is through apologetics. So I do a lot of digging as well. So
it was your video on Matthew where I became big fans of you guys, because I was so upset at how people were getting so angry at Simon Peter for going after Matthew. And I was like, I remember when we first started showing episode 1, 2.5 years ago when it first came out. And the first episode, lots of people were like, I don't like Matthew. I don't like this Matthew guy. I don't like what they're doing with Matthew. And then he ended up becoming the most beloved character on the show besides Jesus, which I was really proud of. And then I'm like, now I'm wondering, did we go too far? Because people are just completely forgetting that he hasn't actually repented of or apologized for some of the things he's done. So so you guys helped explain some of that. So I actually posted your video on the fan club. I'm like, hey, watch this.
Yeah,
definitely saw
like
that.
I was watching that episode. I was watching that episode and I was like, there's no way he's talking about us. I literally said that to her.
He's talking about us. And he's like, there's no way.
So. Oh, you guys are great. I love your show. I've been thinking at some point I would reach out and say, oh, we should talk. But I thought just now, oh, maybe it's fun if I just come on right now. So
yeah, we're open anytime for sure. So
so what did you think of the episode? I was obviously doing a live stream. So I know I normally, after the live stream was over the next couple of days, I'll sometimes check out some of the reaction videos, and I always like watching yours. And I watched your last one, but you guys don't talk a whole lot during the episode.
No, because we
which is good.
Yeah.
We want people to go watch it.
Yeah, we don't want to try to like take in. It's been hard for us because like we want to talk with people and stuff during the episode, and so tonight we did it differently where we didn't show the episode on our channel at all. We wanted to make sure that like we didn't take anything. I don't know. We just felt weird about it, and so we decided to change kind of the way that we're doing it. We're still figuring out the best way to do it, but
But
so what was your? I mean, and you can be completely honest. That's totally fine. If something glitched you, that's totally fine. But what did you think about the episode? Did it? Because this is one of our most crazy episodes we've done.
Yeah.
So many questions, Dallas. I was left with, I want to know more about that. What is going to happen here? So it was a great cliffhanger for sure.
Yeah. And I think
there
honestly,
were some people in the chat were like, put the show back on. Like they thought that like I interrupted it. I'm like, no, there's cliffhangers in shows a lot of times. Like that happens. This is part of a larger story. But anyway, you were about to say something?
No, I think honestly, I thought the episode was really, really good. I think that it is interesting. Someone in our chat said this is a different flavor of episode. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a great way to sum it up, because in some of the other episodes, like I think of episode 4, we see this arc of beginning, middle, end, and we get a climax, and it kind of comes to a point where we're like, like that was really nice. But in this episode, it's like everything is so bitter and we're like not quite sure what's going to happen, and we're kind of left in this dark. And I think honestly, there's some parts where our first reaction to some parts were like, okay, maybe, like, and then just thinking through everything and trying to. But that's what we love about the show too, is that it makes us think, and it makes us kind of like not just go with what we would first say, but at the same time understanding that the show isn't scripture either. Mm-hmm. And I think reiterating that to our community too. So
I think I'm still, I've been a Bible believer my whole life. I attend a very strong Bible church. I would consider myself a conservative, not theologian, but I fall on the conservative, more fundamental side of things. And I still see things sometimes in the Bible that I go, oh, really? So what exactly does that mean? Like, what does it mean when it says Jesus grew in wisdom and stature?
Yeah.
Because like you kind of picture the fact that he just kind of came to earth and he was just fully formed as God. Yeah. What about when Jesus, was praying in the garden and was pleading for this cup to be taken from him? And what about when he says only the Father knows the time, and I don't even know, even the Son doesn't know? So you sometimes, some people in the chat tonight, because I think this might be one of our more controversial episodes just because of the Mary Magdalene thing. Yeah. And some people were like, I don't like you portraying Mary Magdalene. Someone even said that you're showing that she wasn't fully delivered. And I was actually like almost, I don't get offended by things, but I was almost like offended by that notion that when you come to Christ, you just can't, like, everything's great from then on and you just don't struggle. I've had relapses in my struggles with various vices, and that doesn't mean I wasn't delivered. Delivered is on the eternal perspective, and we need to think on the eternal perspective. And so anyway, I feel like, I don't think it's a bad thing, like you're saying, that sometimes the show may cause you to go, that upends my expectations. Is that bad or good? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Let me go check. Let me explore. Let me seek. and find those answers. Would Jesus have struggled to come up with words for a sermon? I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, I actually talked to we have several biblical consultants on the show.
Yeah.
Including evangelical pastor and an evangelical scholar, and we talk about those things. And we talk about the fact that it's not a sin to say, to like when he's talking to John the Baptist and he says, "Oh, maybe I didn't give the best analogy, but what about this?" And that's not sinful. That's human. Does that mean he's not also God? These are the kinds of things that Christians think through all the time. And so I think that's okay. But yeah, it's for sure an episode. And I got to tell you that this isn't going to wrap up beautifully anytime soon. I mean, one of the things that we're leading towards is the Sermon on the Mount, which isn't a spoiler. Everyone knows we're addressing the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says it in this episode. I'm working on a sermon. What we're really trying to illustrate is we really thought at the beginning of this season it would be really cool if Jesus' Sermon on the Mount was a response to things that he was seeing happen. Like it wasn't just I've got a bunch of things to say and I've had a sermon that was written for me when I was 12 and now it's time to deliver it. But what if he's responding to things he's actually seeing among his disciples? People who are poor in spirit, people who are mourning and need to be comforted. And so to get to that point, to get to the answer, you have to also show the question. You have to show the struggle. And we did a lot of that in season 1. Sometimes people forget that the first 4 episodes of season 1 were filled with struggle and pain and relapse and all that. So we don't want to ever gloss over that. So you're going to see, the next episode, we see what happens to Mary, and we see what it looks like when you're trying to be perfect because you think you're supposed to be perfect because you're following Jesus. Right. And what happens when you're not perfect and you screw up big time? Yeah. Then what? And I think people need to see that. Yeah. I think we need to see that what happens when you've been saved and then you screw up. Yeah. Because that's almost worse than when it happens before you were saved. So I just think we're doing ourselves and we're doing the audience, and I think we're doing the church a disservice if we don't explore that and wrestle with it together. Yeah. But I'll be curious what you guys. I'll be curious your follow-up videos that you do because we definitely push the envelope in this episode.
I think my exact words were, "Is it different following Jesus in person?" I think those are my exact words because I'm like, I definitely can't find fault in that. Like I definitely agree. That
it's so relatable.
Yeah, we all fall short.
Yeah.
And we see it, and I like the more I'm thinking about it, the more examples I can think of with Simon Peter cutting off the ear and different things like that,
Yeah, so they use the Gospels use Simon Peter as an example a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean Judas is an example, of course, of someone who the disciples at least assumed. We don't know exactly what Judas was like in his journey, and if he just came again fully formed as a villain. I mean, the Bible talks about how the essentially, for lack of a better term, I think he was overcome by demonic spirits. And that's what the Bible talks about. The Gospels talk about Judas. So what was he like though before that happened? I mean, what was he like before the turn? But yeah, Simon Peter's used an example all the time, even after the Gospels. I mean, into the book of Acts, he was rebuked by Paul. So the notion that even if after 3 years of walking with Jesus, Simon Peter, who ended up as one of the top heroes of the church and of our faith for eternity, was still struggling with his own personality. Certainly, someone like Mary Magdalene, who was possessed by demons, would have had some struggles, and all of these people would have had some struggles with following. And so, was it factual? We don't know, of course, but our operating principle for every episode, for every word we write, is this plausible?
Yeah.
And I don't believe it's implausible that Mary Magdalene could have struggled or even relapsed.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll let you go, but last thing, Art has been super patient. He's wanting to ask you this question. Okay. He says, Dallas, please tell us, will the cast and crew be filming future episodes here in Utah this summer?
Not this summer, but we do plan on shooting in Utah hopefully this year in the fall for at least a few weeks. But we're building a set and a sound stage and everything in Texas. In fact, my family and I are moving to Texas this summer. The Chosen's permanent home will be in Texas, but we will be in Utah a little bit every season because they've got such incredible stuff there. It would be dumb of us not to make use of it. So we'll be back. Right. Was there any other, like before I'll get going here in just a minute, but was there any other questions that you felt were pressing that people wanted to ask that I can answer real quick?
Well, I have one. How did you get our patron link video?
Oh, true. I don't know if that was you. The Chosen commented on a video that we have, but it's a Patreon exclusive. And so one of our patrons.
Okay, so when so you were when you went to your page, when you go to the Snipe Life page, and the main page, there was a list,
a playlist. Oh, okay.
Called
that makes sense.
Chosen Crew.
Okay.
So
cool.
Someone mentioned that to me, and I had seen a different video where you said one of the Chosen cinematographers is coming on, and I texted Akis, our cinematographer, and Arturo, and I go, "Oh, Arturo, I just found out you're one of the Chosen cinematographers."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, no."
So
I just thought you'd want.
I just as simple as possible for people to understand.
Yeah.
We want to respect what.
It's not a huge deal. I just figured you might want to know, just in case.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for what you're doing. You're doing a great work, and it's been fun to see your show grow. And there are other people who've done reaction videos that haven't had the growth that you're having. So I think what you're doing is special and important, and I really appreciate it. And as always, I think you asked real quick. You asked while I was texting or while I was typing in the chat something about do I have advice for other channels that are doing reaction videos. And the only thing I would say is just to if you ever do have something that is a criticism or something that you weren't comfortable with, to be free to talk about that. I think that's really important. And I think I want to model how to handle critiques. How I want us all to model how to have these discussions. Because in the Chosen fan club all the time, someone will criticize somebody or someone will criticize a show, and then all these people get really upset, or they'll ask why we don't take it down. And we're always saying we need to not be so sensitive. We need to be able to handle criticism. We need to handle debate, and honesty and authenticity. Authenticity is one of our core essences of the show, and so continue to do that. So if there's something that you think would have been implausible or something that made you uncomfortable, totally talk about that. And also, if you ever want, now that you have my email address, if there's ever something that you feel like we'd love to hear, we're not sure how to feel about it, or we're not sure what your intention was, so we're not going to criticize it until we know. Feel free to ask me, and I'm happy to answer those questions.
Awesome.
And thank you so much. I've been seeing comments come up and people in the chat who were so kind when I popped in, and very appreciative of it. And it's always never stops getting old or meaningful to me when I hear about people whose lives have been impacted by the show, because we're not doing this for the numbers. We're not doing this for the money. I'm just trying to make the best loaves and fishes that I can. But when there is life change, it never stops being, it never stops wrecking us as a family. It makes my kids especially makes it feel like the sacrifice has been worth it. You know, when we left our job and had no money or income or benefits because, you know, to invest kind of into this show, and we didn't know if it was going to work or not. And, but we believed we were following something God was calling us to do. And so when we hear about the impact, it means a lot. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Welcome anytime, for sure.
All right. So thanks again. We'll talk again.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
What just happened?
So we've been talking about we need a button that when we press it, it says, "That's crazy."
That's crazy moment for sure. Thanks for checking out this video. Truthfully, this is one of the most amazing moments in our YouTube journey so far. But stick around, because we have so much more Chosen content coming. We're gearing up for Season 3, looking at all the clues and hints as to what the episodes could be about, and we're going to be obviously breaking down those episodes when they come out later this year. I hope you guys got some value out of this video. Huge shout out to our patrons who keep this channel running, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.